You know that feeling when your whole world crashes down in a single moment? When the person you trusted most becomes your worst nightmare? Well, let me tell you about Vera Kingston, and how one broken promise changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning in downtown Portland when Vera's phone started buzzing like an angry wasp. Text after text. Call after call. Her heart sank as she recognized the numbers, her college friends, her coworkers, even her grandmother. Everyone was calling, and she knew exactly why. "Vera, honey, I'm so sorry," her best friend Amanda's voice cracked through the phone. "Have you seen Instagram? Facebook? It's everywhere." Vera's hands trembled as she opened her social media apps. There they were, her most intimate photos, the ones she'd shared with Derek Matthews during their 2-year relationship. The ones he'd sworn on his mother's grave he'd never show anyone. Her private moments, her vulnerability, her trust, all splashed across the internet for everyone to see. She'd been an art student at Portland Community College then, working part-time at Morrison's Coffee House to pay for her photography degree. Derek was the charming business major with his vintage Mustang and easy smile who'd swept her off her feet at a campus mixer. He'd been patient, understanding, making her feel like she was the only woman in the world when she finally felt comfortable enough to share those photos. "I promise, babe," he'd whispered that night 6 months ago, his green eyes sincere in the dim light of his Hawthorne apartment. "These are just for us. I'd never hurt you like that." But now, scrolling through post after post, comment after cruel comment, Vera realized how naive she'd been. The photos had been shared in multiple group chats, reposted on various platforms, and worst of all, tagged with her full name and location. Her phone number was being passed around like some sick party favor. The humiliation burned in her chest like acid. Students whispered as she walked across campus. Her manager at the coffee shop gave her pitying looks. Even her photography professor, Mrs. Henderson, pulled her aside with gentle concern. "I trusted him," Vera whispered to Amanda that evening, sitting in her small studio apartment overlooking the Willamette River. "I actually believed he loved me." "What are you going to do?" Amanda asked, watching her friend pace the hardwood floors. Vera stopped at her window, looking out at the city lights twinkling below. Something cold had settled in her stomach, replacing the burning humiliation. She thought about Derek, probably laughing with his fraternity brothers about his conquest. She thought about how he'd thrown away 2 years of her love, her trust, her dignity for what? Internet points? Male validation? "I don't know yet," she said quietly, but her mind was already turning. But Derek Matthews is about to learn that some people shouldn't be crossed. Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "Vera, you're scaring me a little. What's that look in your eyes?" Vera turned from the window, and for the first time in 3 days, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "That, my dear friend, is the look of someone who's done playing games." 3 weeks had passed since Derek's betrayal, and Vera had been busy. Very busy. While everyone expected her to crumble, to transfer schools or hide away in shame, she'd done something else entirely. She'd started researching. Amanda found her in the college library at 2 a.m., surrounded by printouts, laptop open to multiple tabs, energy drink cans scattered across the table like artillery shells. "Vera, this is getting unhealthy," Amanda whispered, sliding into the chair beside her. "You've lost weight, you barely sleep, and now I find you here at ungodly hours. What exactly are you doing?" Vera looked up, her brown eyes bright with purpose. "Learning about Derek Matthews. Really learning about him." She turned her laptop screen toward Amanda, revealing a complex web of information. Social media profiles, class schedules, work history, family connections, even his medical records from when he'd broken his arm playing intramural basketball. "Jesus, Vera. How did you get all this?" "You'd be amazed what people leave online," Vera said, stretching her neck. "Derek's not as smart as he thinks. He uses the same password for everything, his dog's name plus his birth year. Buster 2001. I found it written on a napkin in his car once." Amanda's face paled. "You hacked into his accounts?" "I prefer accessed information he carelessly left vulnerable," Vera corrected, scrolling through Derek's private messages. "Look at this, Amanda. Look at what your precious popular boy has been up to." The screen showed conversation after conversation. Derek wasn't just sharing Vera's photos, he had intimate images from at least 6 other women. Girls from high school, college classmates, even his ex-girlfriend from freshman year, Brittany Walsh. He'd been collecting them like trophies, trading them with his friends like baseball cards. My God, Amanda breathed. He's been doing this to everyone. Everyone, Vera confirmed. But here's the interesting part. She clicked to another tab showing Derek's academic records. Our honor student has been cheating his way through business school. Every major exam, every paper, he's got a whole network of people doing his work. Amanda leaned back in her chair. So what's the plan? Report him to the dean? Go to the police? Vera's smile returned, that same cold expression from 3 weeks ago. Oh, that's just the beginning. See, I've learned something very interesting about Derek Matthews. He's severely allergic to shellfish. Anaphylactic shock level allergic. Carries an EpiPen everywhere. Okay, and tomorrow night is the Kappa Sigma formal dinner at the Riverside Ballroom. Derek's going with his new girlfriend, that sorority princess Rebecca Stone from his marketing class. He's been bragging about it all week in his group chat. Amanda grabbed Vera's arm. Please tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking. Vera gently removed Amanda's hand and began packing up her research. I'm thinking Derek Matthews is about to have a very memorable evening. The kind that ends with flashing lights and sirens. Vera, if you hurt him. Hurt him. Vera's eyes widened in mock innocence. Amanda, I would never hurt Derek. I'm just going to give him exactly what he deserves. A taste of his own medicine, you might say. She shouldered her backpack and headed for the library exit. Don't wait up for me tomorrow night. I'll be busy cooking. The Riverside Ballroom buzzed with the energy of Portland's college elite. Greek life members mingled in their finest attire, champagne glasses catching the light from crystal chandeliers. Derek Matthews stood near the appetizer table in his rented tuxedo, arm wrapped possessively around Rebecca Stone, regaling a group of fraternity brothers with some undoubtedly embellished story. Vera watched from across the room, barely recognizable in her catering uniform. Getting hired as temporary kitchen staff for Romano's Catering had been easier than expected, a fake reference, a borrowed food handler's license, and suddenly she was part of the team preparing dinner for 200 guests. New girl, you're on sauce duty, barked Chef Martinez, the head of catering operations. Keep those serving dishes full, and don't mess with Chef Romano's special lobster bisque. That's his signature dish. Perfect. Vera had spent the last week perfecting her plan. She'd studied the catering company's typical menu, learned their serving procedures, even practiced walking with serving trays until she could navigate a crowded room blindfolded. But most importantly, she'd researched every ingredient in every dish. The lobster bisque was Derek's favorite. She'd remembered him ordering it at Antonio's restaurant for their 6-month anniversary. He'd gone on and on about how it was the best thing ever created. Tonight, it would be his downfall. Excuse me, Vera approached one of the other servers, a college-aged guy named Kevin. Chef Martinez wants you to help with the salad course. I'll cover your section. Kevin shrugged and headed back to the kitchen. Vera picked up his serving tray, loaded with small cups of the creamy lobster bisque, and made her way through the crowd. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands remained steady. Derek was holding court near the windows overlooking the Willamette River, Rebecca hanging on his every word like he was delivering the Sermon on the Mount. 3 other couples surrounded them, all laughing at his jokes, all part of his privileged little world. Lobster bisque. Vera kept her voice professionally neutral, offering the tray to the group. Oh hell yes, Derek grinned, not even looking at her face as he reached for a cup. This stuff is incredible. Rebecca wrinkled her nose. I'm lactose intolerant. But you go ahead, baby. More for me. Derek winked at his friends and downed the bisque in 2 gulps. Man, Romano's really knows how to. He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes meeting Vera's for the first time. Recognition flickered across his features, followed quickly by confusion, then something that might have been fear. Vera, he whispered, the empty cup slipping from his fingers. Hello, Derek, she said quietly, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Enjoying your dinner? The color began draining from his face. What are you doing here? Just serving dinner to some very special guests, Vera smiled, backing away slowly. I do hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. All of it. She turned and walked calmly toward the kitchen, leaving Derek staring after her with growing panic in his eyes. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the waiting. Derek's throat began to tighten as Vera disappeared into the crowd. At first, he told himself it was just shock. Seeing his ex-girlfriend serving at his formal dinner was bizarre enough to cause physical symptoms, right? But as the minutes ticked by, the tightness became constriction, and the constriction became terror. "Derek, are you okay?" Rebecca's voice sounded distant, muffled. "You look really pale." He tried to speak, but only managed a wheeze. His hands flew to his throat, clawing at his bow tie as if it were strangling him. The room began to spin, faces blurring together into a kaleidoscope of concern and confusion. "Oh God," he gasped, the realization hitting him like a freight train. "The bisque. She put something in the bisque." "What are you talking about?" Rebecca grabbed his arm as he swayed. "Derek, you're scaring me." But Derek was beyond hearing her. His lips were swelling, his tongue felt thick and useless in his mouth. Hives erupted across his neck like angry red flowers blooming in fast forward. He fumbled for his jacket pocket, desperate fingers searching for the EpiPen he always carried. It wasn't there. Panic exploded through his chest as he patted down every pocket, every fold of fabric. Where was it? He never went anywhere without it. Never. The EpiPen was as essential as his wallet, his phone, his... In the kitchen, Vera quietly disposed of Derek's EpiPen in the industrial garbage disposal, watching the plastic disappear with a grinding mechanical sound. She'd lifted it from his jacket while he was distracted, talking to his friends near the coat check. Amazing how easy it was to take something from someone when they trusted you not to. Back in the ballroom, Derek collapsed into a chair, his breathing becoming increasingly labored. The sound was horrible, wet, desperate gasps that cut through the elegant dinner conversation like a rusty knife. "Someone call 911. Rebecca screamed, her composure finally cracking. "He can't breathe." The ballroom erupted into chaos. Guests pushed closer, then backed away as Derek's condition worsened. His fraternity brothers stood frozen, none of them knowing what to do as their charismatic leader writhed in his chair, clawing at his throat. "It's an allergic reaction," someone shouted. "Does anyone have an EpiPen?" Of course, no one did. Why would they? This was supposed to be a celebration, not a medical emergency. Derek's vision began to tunnel. Through the growing darkness, he caught a glimpse of Vera watching from the kitchen doorway. She wasn't running, wasn't panicking like the others. She stood perfectly still, arms crossed, watching him suffocate with the same cold expression she'd worn that night at her apartment window. His eyes met hers across the room, and in that moment, Derek Matthews understood exactly what was happening to him. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't random. This was Vera's revenge, calculated and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was her lips moving, forming words meant only for him across the chaos. "This is for the photos, you bastard." The sound of sirens grew closer, but Derek Matthews was already falling into darkness, wondering if he'd ever wake up to explain what he'd done to deserve this. The fluorescent lights of Portland General Hospital's emergency room cast everything in stark, unforgiving white. Derek Matthews lay unconscious on a gurney, an oxygen mask covering his swollen face while machines beeped steadily around him. The medical team had worked quickly, epinephrine, corticosteroids, breathing treatments, pulling him back from the edge of anaphylactic shock just in time. Dr. Sarah Kim checked his chart as Derek's parents, Martin and Linda Matthews, sat vigil beside his bed. They'd driven from their home in Lake Oswego the moment they received the call, Linda still wearing her gardening clothes, Martin's golf shirt wrinkled from the frantic drive. "Will he be okay?" Linda whispered, her manicured fingers gripping Derek's hand. "He's stable now," Dr. Kim assured them. "But I have to ask, are you certain he accidentally ingested shellfish?" His reaction was severe, and he should have used his EpiPen immediately. The delay almost killed him. Martin frowned. Derek's been managing his allergy since he was 8. He's never careless about it. Never. "That's what concerns me," the doctor replied. "Patients with his level of awareness don't usually have accidents like this." In the hallway, Detective Ray Morrison reviewed the initial incident report. A formal dinner, sudden allergic reaction, no EpiPen found on the victim. The restaurant claimed they'd clearly labeled all dishes containing shellfish, and the bisque Derek consumed wasn't supposed to contain any allergens beyond dairy. Detective. A young uniformed officer approached. We talked to some witnesses from the dinner. Several people mentioned seeing the victim talking to a waitress just before he got sick. Seemed to recognize her, got upset about something. Morrison looked up from his notes. Did anyone get a description? Better than that. The catering company provided their employee list. Problem is, one of their servers left right after the incident without clocking out. Vera Kingston. And here's the interesting part, she was hired just last week with references that don't check out. Derek's eyes fluttered open as consciousness slowly returned. The mask felt suffocating against his face, but breathing had never felt so sweet. His throat still burned, his skin still itched from the hives, but he was alive. Derek, honey, his mother's voice was thick with tears. Don't try to talk. You're going to be okay. But Derek pushed the mask aside, his voice barely a whisper. Vera, it was Vera. What's he saying? Martin leaned closer. Vera Kingston, Derek rasped, each word an effort. She poisoned me. The bisque. She put something in it. Dr. Kim stepped forward. Mr. Matthews, you're suggesting someone deliberately triggered your allergic reaction? Derek nodded weakly, his eyes filling with a mixture of pain and shame. He knew what would come next. Questions about why someone would want to hurt him, investigations into his relationship with Vera. Everything would come out. The photos, the betrayal, his systematic collection of intimate images from multiple women. There's something I need to tell you, he whispered to his parents. About Vera and me. About what I did. Linda exchanged a worried glance with her husband. What are you talking about, son? Derek closed his eyes, knowing that surviving Vera's revenge was only the beginning of his problems. Detective Morrison sat across from Derek in the hospital room, his notepad ready as Derek's lawyer, James Whitfield, reviewed the preliminary statements. The Matthews family had called Whitfield immediately after Derek's confession to his parents about the photos. Now, 3 days after the poisoning incident, Derek was finally strong enough to give a formal statement. Let me understand this correctly, Morrison said, his weathered face impassive. You shared intimate photographs of Ms. Kingston without her consent, and you believe this motivated her to deliberately trigger your allergic reaction? Derek nodded miserably. The shame had been eating at him more than the physical aftereffects of the anaphylaxis. I know how it sounds, but Vera's not. She wasn't the same person after I posted those photos. She got this look in her eyes, like she was planning something. Mr. Matthews, Whitfield interrupted, I need to remind you that admitting to sharing intimate images without consent is potentially admitting to multiple felonies under Oregon's revenge porn statutes. I don't care about that right now, Derek said quietly. She tried to kill me. Morrison leaned forward. We've been investigating Ms. Kingston. Interesting background. Honor student, photography major, no criminal record. But she's been very busy since your incident with the photos. She accessed your social media accounts, your email, even your academic records. Derek's face paled further. What did she find? Everything, it looks like. The photos weren't just of her, were they, Mr. Matthews? The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Martin Matthews shifted in his chair, while Linda dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Son, Martin said quietly, you need to tell them everything. Derek's voice came out as a whisper. There were others. Maybe 6 or 7 different girls over the past few years. I kept them on a private cloud account, shared them with some friends. I thought it was harmless, just guys being guys. Morrison's expression hardened. Harmless. Right. And Ms. Kingston discovered this. She must have. Look, I know what I did was wrong, but that doesn't give her the right to poison me. Actually, Morrison flipped through his notes, we can't prove she poisoned you. The catering company's investigation shows no evidence of tampering with the bisque. Ms. Kingston worked in a different section of the kitchen, never had access to the soup preparation area. Derek stared at the detective. But she was there. She served me the bisque herself. According to the other servers, Ms. Kingston switched assignments with another employee to cover his section. Perfectly normal practice. And the bisque she served came from the same batch served to dozens of other guests. No one else had any reaction. Then how? We found something interesting in the kitchen garbage disposal, Morrison continued. Plastic fragments that appear to be from an EpiPen. Your EpiPen, specifically. Serial number matches your prescription. Derek's lawyer straightened. Are you saying someone deliberately disposed of my client's emergency medication? I'm saying it's interesting timing. Mr. Matthews has a severe allergic reaction, and his life-saving medication mysteriously disappears. If someone wanted to ensure maximum damage from an accidental exposure. Derek felt the blood drain from his face as the full scope of Vera's plan became clear. She hadn't poisoned him at all. She'd simply removed his safety net and waited for karma to do the rest. 6 months later, Vera Kingston stood in the witness box of Multnomah County Circuit Court, her hand raised as she swore to tell the truth. The courtroom was packed, media representatives, fellow students, and most importantly, 6 other women whose intimate photos Derek had shared without consent. District Attorney Rachel Chun had built a comprehensive case against Derek Matthews. Armed with Vera's meticulous research, they'd uncovered not just the photo sharing, but academic fraud, identity theft, and a pattern of predatory behavior stretching back to high school. Ms. Kingston, Day Chun began, can you tell the court about your relationship with the defendant? I trusted Derek completely, Vera said, her voice steady but emotional. When he asked for intimate photos, he promised they were just for us. He said he loved me, that he'd never hurt me. And what happened to those photos? He shared them on social media platforms, group chats, and file-sharing sites. Within hours, they were everywhere. My phone number, my address, even my class schedule were being passed around campus. Derek sat at the defense table, unable to meet her eyes. His lawyer had tried to negotiate a plea deal, but Vera had refused. She wanted everything in the open, every detail exposed. Ms. Kingston, you've been accused of deliberately causing Mr. Matthews' allergic reaction at the Kappa Sigma formal. How do you respond? Vera's composure never wavered. I worked as a server that night to confront Derek publicly about what he'd done to me and to other women. I had no knowledge of what ingredients were in any of the food served, nor did I have access to the kitchen preparation areas. The prosecution had already established that the bisque Derek consumed came from a standard batch, clearly labeled as containing lobster. Derek's allergic reaction was triggered by his own poor decision-making. He'd assumed the bisque was safe without checking, distracted by seeing Vera and panicking about potential consequences. As for the missing EpiPen, Vera's fingerprints were never found on it. The plastic fragments could have ended up in the disposal through any number of means. Without concrete proof of tampering, the prosecution couldn't charge her with assault. I want to read something, Vera said, turning to address Derek directly. These are comments that were left on the posts containing my photos. Slut. Whore. She deserved it. Thanks for sharing. Do you know what it's like to have strangers judge your worth based on your most vulnerable moments? Derek's parents sat in the gallery, their faces etched with shame. Over the months, they'd learned the full extent of their son's actions, not just the photos, but the cheating, the lies, the systematic violation of trust from multiple young women. When the jury returned their verdict, guilty on all counts of unlawful dissemination of intimate images, computer crimes, and academic fraud, Derek received the maximum sentence, 3 years in prison and lifetime registration as a sex offender. Vera stood outside the courthouse afterward, surrounded by reporters and the other survivors. What's next for you? One journalist asked. I'm finishing my photography degree, Vera said simply. And I'm starting a non-profit to help other survivors of image-based sexual abuse. Derek Matthews tried to destroy my life, but instead, he gave me a purpose. She walked away from the courthouse, finally free from the weight of his betrayal, ready to help others find their own justice.